welcome. It's an increasing, hair-raising, hair-singeing concern worldwide. At any point of time for the last over 2 years almost, at some point or the other in some part of the world, you call them bushfires, forest fires, wildfires, they've been raging, eating up acres and acres of land, homes, all kinds of resources, yet there is no solution in sight except for escaping the singeing fires. There's just no solution in sight. Even in the latest climate conference, no solutions emerged. There was no concrete response in terms of revising even targets that are required to be done to combat climate change, which is the root cause of these raging and increasingly burgeoning forest fires. We're talking about this in our special show, and I'm Gautam Roy, and we'll lead you through how this crisis is growing and what sort of a response is the world giving to it. Well, wildfires burned around the world, from Australia to Amazon to California to Indonesia to India. These forest blazes are part of nature, but climate change is making them more frequent and more intense.
In August 2019, Amazon fires grabbed headlines around the world. Some 87,000 forest fires were recorded in Brazil, causing irreversible damage to the rainforests and its rich ecosystem. Forest fires are common in the Amazon during dry season, but this season most are believed to have been started by farmers and loggers clearing land for crops and grazing. Altogether, more than 7,000 square kilometers of rainforest were felled during the first 9 months, an 85% increase over the same period last year. The Amazon, a huge carbon store, is a vital buffer for the world against climate change, and this year's fires, accompanied by high levels of deforestation, have been devastating to this important ecosystem. California's biggest wildfire this year, a wind-driven blaze that scorched 120 square miles of Sonoma County wine country and consumed scores of homes, was declared fully contained and extinguished in 2 weeks after erupting. The Kincaid fire alone accounts for nearly a third of the 250,000 plus acres laid to waste by blazes since January, many during a series of violent windstorms of historic proportions that swept California. The tally of more than 400 structures damaged or destroyed in the Kincaid fire also represents over half the property losses from all California wildfires. Destruction caused by the wildfires in the United States has significantly increased in the last 2 decades. Fires in Indonesia that spread a smoky haze over Southeast Asia burnt at least 1.6 million hectares of mostly degraded land and carbon-rich peatlands. Southeast Asia has suffered for years from smoke caused by fires in Indonesia, raising health and environmental concerns, but this year was the worst since 2015, when 2.6 million hectares were burnt. Slash and burn clearing by some palm oil growers is often blamed for the fires, which can then spread rapidly, especially during dry weather. The Indonesian fires have been blamed for increasing greenhouse gas emissions and deforestation that can endanger wildlife such as orangutans. Forest fires in Uttarakhand have also been a regular and historic feature. Every year, forest fires in Uttarakhand cause great loss to the forest ecosystem, diversity in flora and fauna, and economic wealth. Forest fire is one of the major disasters in the forests of the state. The fire spreads more and more due to pine leaves, which are highly inflammable due to the presence of resin and oil in them, and drying up of natural water springs and various other water sources. Since the formation of Uttarakhand, forest fires have registered a 500% increase in the state in terms of areas they affected in the past 19 years. Bureau Report, DD India.
So be it India, the US, or different parts of the world at different points of time, the entire globe is affected. Even now, the deadly bushfires in Australia that made headlines during most of 2019 are still raging on in the new year. New South Wales has declared an emergency. The deadly fires have burned down over 1,000 homes and destroyed nearly 4 million, that's 40 lakh hectares of bushland. As we speak, over 200 fires are scorching across southeastern states of New South Wales and Victoria. Take a look.
Australia is battling the worst fires in a decade. The deadly wildfires are showing no signs of stopping. The New South Wales state government declared a state of emergency on 2nd January, giving authorities the power to forcibly evacuate people and take control of services. Tens of thousands of holiday makers and residents raced to evacuate popular seaside towns on Australia's east coast, fleeing ahead of advancing bushfires. Thousands of people are fleeing a vast tourist-lead zone in New South Wales, with supplies running low in some cut-off towns. It's been called the largest relocation out of the region ever. Fueled by searing temperatures and high winds, more than 200 fires are now burning across the southeastern states of New South Wales and Victoria, threatening several towns. Bushfires so far this season have razed more than 4 million hectares of bushland and destroyed more than 1,000 homes, including 381 homes destroyed on the south coast just this week. Casualties are also rising due to the devastating bushfires. Blazes have torn through bushland, wooded areas and national parks like the Blue Mountains. Australia's largest cities have also been affected, including Melbourne and Sydney. Fires have damaged homes in the outer suburbs and thick plumes of smoke have blanketed the urban centre. Efforts are underway to clear roads, restore power and conduct back-burning operations to thin out bushland near fire fronts. NSW Premier Gladys Berejiklian said authorities were working to restore communications with areas that have been cut off by the fires. BD India.
Now, it's very important to understand the perils and the dangers of these wildfires, bushfires, forest fires, what have you, because once they're lit, they're very difficult to put out. Let's just try and understand what exactly is involved over here. The menace of wildfires is rampant right now. It can burn millions of acres of land at very rapid speeds. It just burns through anything and everything that stands in its way. It can consume everything: trees, homes, factories, infrastructure, of course, human beings as well, as we're painfully finding out in Australia. Rolling flames travel up to 23 kilometers per hour, and that's fairly fast because if you consider an average human being, the average human being can be overtaken by these forest fires within a matter of minutes. What happens next, of course, is destruction. Only 10 to 15% of wildfires occur on their own in nature. That's a very, very small proportion that happens on its own. 85 to 90% of these wildfires, forest fires, are because of human causes. Now, these human causes can, of course, be because of accidents. You leave a campfire burning, or just throw a cigarette or anything else, a matchstick. But there are deliberate reasons as well that have been found that these wildfires have taken place. Now, forest fires do provide a natural heavy fuel load as well, because there are trees, tall trees that catch fire, and that's a lot of wood to burn through. Heavier fuel load means more intense fires. So the amount of heat generated is also huge. These fires then, of course, spread very quickly. Wind is a major contributor to wildfires because wind feeds the fire as well. That's what we're going to tell you about. It increases the supply of oxygen to the fire. More and more oxygen, the fire blazes on more brightly, more hotly. California's most wildfire-prone state in the US. Why? Because California is to a very large extent dry as well. That is one reason. But California lost 1.82 lakh acres of land to 8,054 wildfires in 2018. That's the highest number, and the area affected was also pretty huge in California. Now, California wildfires often are made worse by the Santa Ana winds. These blow very strongly, and these are very dry winds that come in. They are hot and dry, and they can carry a small spark as well for miles and miles. So it just spreads the fire very, very widely and very, very quickly. And then, of course, what happens is that the hot and dry Santa Ana winds lead to even more raging flames in the entire region, especially in the state of California in the US. And we'll be talking about this further as well. Taking a quick break, be back with more on raging fires. Welcome back. You're watching our special on raging fires because increasingly it's becoming a global concern. Every time we see at every moment, in fact, for the last nearly 2 years, some kind of forest fire which has been burning up acres and acres of land is raging on in some part of the world or not. The latest is Australia, and to talk about it, we have Hem Kumar Pandey, former Special Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, with us. Welcome to DD India and DD News. Mr. Pandey, what do you make of this phenomena in the first place, the way forest fires have been raging in one part of the world or the other for the last 2 odd years? Even the Amazon forests have not been spared.
Well, I mean, Government of India, Ministry of Environment and Forest, its tagline is nature protects if she is protected, So, it's a high time, In fact, this year, in a period of 1 year, there have been fires 5 times globally, and more in Asia, which we don't get to know more. But we get to know about Brazil, where Amazon forests were burning, in southern hemisphere. Again in southern hemisphere, Australia, the Australian summer season has just started, and the huge areas under forest. So I think it's a high time the ecology, gets priority over economics. It's a development and growth is fine, and affluent nations, of course Brazil is developing country, but Australia is a developed country. They should have had their growth within the parameters of nature. It's a huge continent nation. At the same time, it's burning like this. I think there is something wrong. Ecology has to get precedence. Each and every project, each and every development has to take into consideration ecology. And ecology, I mean, is the study of the house. We have not studied the planet. Okay. We have started managing it. Economics is what? Managing the house, right? So, without studying the house, we have been managing, and we have literally mismanaged. We have no business to have 7 billion people on this earth. It's the biological capacity of the earth has just gone for a haywire, and I don't think it's a high time. It's high time ecology gets priority over everything, and as much as possible.
But is that happening? Do you see that happening? Even in the latest COP16 in Madrid, it turned out to be inconclusive because some nations wanted targets to be revised. Some said let's stick to the targets that we had set earlier because we're still to achieve them. Although India has made some massive progress in that regard.
See, it's a talk more. These global events, climate change event takes place once in a year, biodiversity once in 2 years, desertification once in 2 years, and many more. It's all have become a good talking, but nobody wants to walk the talk. Who will walk the talk? Now India, because we are most vulnerable to climate change. Now, Western world who have been responsible for this, they are backing out. They talk, and they don't extend any. The idea was, once we embrace technology, technology might substitute many of our causes to damage nature, but it has not happened. It has happened vertically. That's why now we are talking about circular economy. Circular economy is like nature has no waste. We human beings have have been wasting resources like anything. We could have done with a little bit of resource. We could have done wonderfully well. Now it's a high time when resources are burning. This forest fires, bushfires in Australia. Australia is home of eucalyptus, and some of the eucalyptus need fire, to grow properly. But unfortunately, if these areas burn like this, and this is nothing but humans solely are responsible, and humans have to rethink the way we are growing.
Right, but we're clearly not doing that because it's not just a matter of population, it's how human activity is also spreading and it's trying to gobble up more and more land, and that perhaps is one of the key causes of these forest fires the deliberate nature of these forest fires, which is 80 to 85%.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't think when the better sense will prevail. You know, every time when the fires are on, we talk about fire. But what happens when the fires are not there? You know, nature has its own resilience. Nature can come back. It's an ecosystem. You know, ecosystem has living portion, it has non-living parts. So living and non-living, they interact with each other and we get many functions. In fact, scientists have identified 24 ecological services. An ideal, a perfect ecosystem will provide us these kind of services depending on what kind of ecosystem we are talking about. But we human beings, one species, has really not taken care of its own home, own house, the planet Earth. You know, and we have been madly going after managing the house, increasing the profits. Corporations are making profits out of natural resources. They talk about CSR, which is a charity. Environment doesn't need charity. Environment really needs pulling up your socks, and otherwise we'll keep on. These burnings will increase and increase. The amount of damage, it may be negligence, it may be bad management, you know, it may be monoculture. One variety, if you keep growing one variety of species, the resilience of the system goes. Forests have to be diverse, forests have to be as per the location. You know, India is blessed with all kinds of ecosystems, forest ecosystems, you know, 17 types, 250 plus subtypes. The Australian forests in southern hemisphere, you know, these are dry, where the fire is taking place, the dry area, high temperatures. I'm told 1.5 degree threshold has also been crossed there, you know, because of these fires. It's unfortunate. Yes. It's unfortunate, and it's a tiny country. You know, the size of Australia population is what India grows in 1 year. You know, so it should not have happened in Australia. They I think have not taken care of its ecology at all, and in the bad, you know, it's a greed versus need. And I think India must rewind the word that just take the resources as per the need, not.
How has India been showing the way, and what more can it do to show the world the way to, you know, combat these challenges, not just forest fires, but the larger, you know, climate change challenge?
See, we also do get forest fires, and wherever we get forest fires, particularly in the Himalayan region, northern western Himalaya, it's again because of you know, mismanagement or you know, more monoculture of pine trees in that area, and you know, drought and all that has contributed. But by and large, you know, I think India is one country which where the forests are growing. Forests are growing, the area under forest cover keeps growing. We are not losing forests, yes, and we are also improving quality of the forest area.
But does a distinction need to be made between forest cover and tree cover?
It's a nomenclature. There's not much of it. You see, it's a green cover. You need to protect the soil. The definition of forest in India is still under debate. You know, what comes of forest. But you know, in spite of that, India has a lot of natural areas. We need to have. Once upon a time, we used to say that 1/3 of our area will be under forest, quality forest, which of course we will keep trying to achieve. And in the hills, in the Himalayan region, it has to be 2/3 of the area under forest. We are there in Himalaya. We are more or less there. 40% of India's forests are in Himalaya, and our, you know, national parks, sanctuaries. So you know, we have there's an opportunity cost. We are growing and developing, trying to do it sustainably. We have huge human population. 1/5 of the world is here in India. 1/5 of the world's cattle population is here in India. In spite of that, if we have natural forest areas, I think we have done good. And of course, lot more needs to be done. We are equally vulnerable to these forest fires, be it South India, be it North India, be it West India, be it East India. We are equally vulnerable, and we have different forest types. There are some forest types which are more prone to fires.
Right.
Monocultures are more prone to fires.
Now, as the focus needs to be, of course, on protecting forests and protecting them from these wildfires as well, an increasing focus has also been there on disaster management, of which one aspect is how to tackle these forest fires, because as we can see in the current case in Australia, they can pose a huge challenge. Do you feel that there is a lot more scope of improvement there as well?
Yeah, there are about unfortunate 18-20 deaths in Australia because of low density of population. Has these areas been thickly populated, you know, and I think the advantage that Australia has, they are a developed country, they can evacuate people quickly, they have technology, they have equipment. But what is needed today is use technology for improving the quality of nature, improving the quality of ecosystem services, not improving the quality of life of human to an extent that it damages nature. You know, what is the point of having a comfortable life if you don't have when the life itself is under challenge? You know, so we have to make a distinction between how far we can go in our pursuit for affluence, you know, not at the cost of nature. Nature protects if she is protected. You can't push the nature to the wall. You know, if ecosystem services, as I said, you know, nature has a lot of resilience.
Yes, and nature doesn't take it lying
yeah,
down.
but you know, you can't keep on damaging. You can't. You are destroying forests. You are growing crops which give you quick bucks. You know, the palm oil forest, the oil, or you know, the Amazon is being cut, removed for quick bucks. I think this must stop. And these major countries, California state, US, Brazil, Australia, they must learn lessons and ensure that, you know, this doesn't happen. This is causing immense damage to entire population on this earth.
The whole thing about climate change, of course, is that the world seems to be divided, you know, especially in the Western Hemisphere, in the absolute West, in the US. There's still a debate on whether climate change is something that is happening or it's not happening. Although in Europe, to a large extent, even Greta Thunberg has remarked on this, that people accept it as a fact that climate change is a reality and you need to make efforts to combat it. Where do you think this debate, isn't it high time that it should be laid to rest and there should be concerted action instead of the US withdrawing from the climate agreement? It should come back in.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's a chicken and egg situation. You know, climate change exacerbates the damage to nature. You know, nature keeps on changing, adapting. Nature is resilient. As I said, there are two components of our nature as an ecosystem, biotic and abiotic components. And there's a nature is in a balanced way. Nature will provide you as many services as possible. Unfortunately, the you know, once you destroy it for commercial purposes, as I said, monoculture versus polyculture, you know, the variety of species in a place and one species in a place. Obviously, one species will damage the ecosystem. It's just not having one species tree cover. You have to have variety of species, local species which are suited. There are tree species, plant species which are fire resistance. You know, they can control fire, but we have removed those. We have removed those. So you know, nature has its own way of growing, developing. We human beings, in pursuit of our you know, quality of life, to a point where, as I said, I think we need to draw a line, and this is this is leading to you know, the climate change, the you know, the periodicity of these kind of episodes. Is forest fires were earlier also there. Forest fires are generally, if managed well, contained well, are beneficial to forest growth, the you know, forest floor growth, soil quality improvement, and so on and so forth. But if it's uncontrolled, if it is human made, then it's going to only harm us. So, otherwise control, I mean in our country also we have controlled fire, but then you have to choose the season when to do it. Where are the winds?
We've gone for a huge drive in renewable energy. The solar alliance that Prime Minister Modi's government initiated is now taking taking long, large strides forward as well. And the world needs to perhaps match step, because we have to stop burning of fossil fuels, to which we're still very much dependent on.
Yeah, that's the context today is different. That is one area that India has taken lead. Renewable energy is the solution, I guess, but the cost has to come down, and as long as fossil fuels are allowed to be used for energy needs, it's going to be a big challenge. Technology transfer is not happening. Technologies are coming, but are coming in the private sector. So I guess International Solar Alliance, where India has taken lead, might provided the big. But as you already said, that US is not there in climate change discourse. Almost 1/4 of the Earth's resources US itself consumes. Where are we looking for? There's a time to walk the talk, and particularly in matters of ecology, environment, forest, soil, agriculture.
Do you think the push has to come from the people itself? The people need to demand it and make a political movement. That's only will the governments be compelled to make decisions in favor of the earth?
Yeah, that's happening. 1972 Stockholm, when the conference there, environment and development was linked. India's Prime Minister was there, one only apart from the host, head of the state. And then the Earth Summit in Rio in '92, where 3 conventions came into being. So, from the UN side, from the government side, from the society side, it is happening, but it is happening only as a drop in ocean and more as a talking platform, not action platform.
Well, that perhaps needs to grow and needs to become a mass movement. It needs to acquire some sort of a critical mass, and then perhaps we'll see action by governments as well. Otherwise, these forest fires, that the ones that we see in Australia, the devastation that they're raining right now, is going to get even worse. We'll have to see how this is tackled. Thanks a lot for joining us, Mr. Pandey, for the moment, and thanks for joining us, all our viewers as well, to talk about these raging fires and what's the best way to combat them. We're still coming up with ways, with solutions, but everybody has to pitch in, and then only can a dent be made. Thanks for watching.